I'm going to say a sentence in Latin. Quo vadi? Quo vadi? Where are you going? Quo vadi ANC today? If this is where it comes from, where are we going? We seem to have forgotten our roots as our ranks are infiltrated by one criminal after the other. From the branches of the organization to the low offices of government as councillors, right through the offices of premiers and ministers, including the highest office, the presidency. Criminals have found their way into these offices.
Welcome, Matuba Tau Gacheni. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Musima Gabriel Tokyo Sehwale.
Thank you. I have a speech which I wrote, but having listened to some of the things which were said by a young man who was here, as well as Kateka. There she is, the young lady. I asked myself, why should I stand before you? But then, as a devoted citizen, I'm here with you tonight. When you write these things, be very careful, because devoted, if you remove the last D, is devote. So you never know what people who are standing under a black street light will be thinking about devoting. But what a nice thing to hear. I used to have posters here. I hope none of them will appear on TikTok under a dark cloud, a dark light. We live in very interesting times where change is in our hands, where the future is not a distance away from here, is within your grasp, is within your control. But as we do that, it is important from time to time just to gaze at the back and find out where we come from. If you thought you will hear a political speech from me tonight, you will be disappointed. I'm a preacher. But let me take you through where we all come from and why it is important to remain focused about our generation and our genesis. In a few hours' time, we'll be experiencing at 12 o'clock the change in time that introduces the 30 years of democracy. It will be a reminder of what happened on the 27th of April, 1994. So we're sitting here tonight, playing the drums, rolling the time, and watching as to whether our future is safe, starting from midnight tonight. But where do we come from? I want to start by reading the following. It will tell you where we come from. Sharing and revealing one of his least known and intimate teenage moments on matters to do with faith. The founding father of our new nation, the one who took the salute on the 27th, 30 years ago, Nelson Mandela, he writes the following in his celebrated epic Long Walk to Freedom. It's something that is hidden somewhere there, which I would like to amplify today, particularly for you, our young people. Madiba writes the following: I became a member of the Students' Christian Association, and I taught Bible studies on Sundays in neighboring villages. One of my comrades on these expeditions was a serious young science scholar. He came from Pondoland in the Transkei. His name was Oliver Tambo. These two men in history have their legacies intertwined in the history of our country. These two young teenagers who were teaching Bible studies in the bundus of this country later became presidents of their own organization, which was formed before they were born. It was formed in 1912. One was born in 1917, Oliver Tambo, and Nelson Mandela, 1918. But they were teaching the Bible. This organization, which was later to be led by both of them, one after the other, as presidents, was formed in a church in Bloemfontein, Mangaung. This organization was formed by men of the cloth, like Pastor Matebu. This organization had its first president in 1912, who was a man of the clergy, John Langalibalele Dube. And this organization was to see later many members of the clergy taking leadership. It also had a bishop, Mahabali, as president. One of the most iconic leaders who also became a president, who was a celebrated first African to win the Nobel Peace Prize, Chief Albert Luthuli, was a lay preacher. Oliver Tambo himself enrolled for studies not far from here, St. Peter's, to become a priest. Nelson Mandela, with whom I spent many years in jail, missed church only once in 27 years. He had flu. Only once. Oliver Tambo, to keep an organization alive for 30 years in exile, and to keep the unity of the people who were scattered in more than 60 countries, held this organization through the holiness and righteousness of spirit. He never forgot that he was the young man who taught the Bible. Well, what we are inside the ANC, because we were taught along the road of freedom and justice by men who were God-fearing. I'm going to say a sentence in Latin. Quo vadi? Quo vadi? Where are you going? Quo vadi ANC today? If this is where it comes from, where are we going? We seem to have forgotten our roots as our ranks are infiltrated by one criminal after the other. From the branches of the organization to the low offices of government as councillors, right through the offices of premiers and ministers, including the highest office, the presidency. Criminals have found their way into these offices. Yet the organization, with its policies and its standpoints on justice, on freedom, on rights, on the birthright of the people around land, economic justice, all these things, it stands firm. Something is happening inside this glorious organization. But faith kept us alive. In exile, underground, and in prison. To keep the faith. As prisoners, and this is where I'm going to preach to you. We kept the faith because we believed in the goodness of God. And were inspired by many prisoners across the world down history. But there was one prisoner that kept the faith in our spirits. That was Saint Paul, Apostle Paul. Yes. The one of letters to the Romans, to the Corinthians, where he comes from. Letters to the Galatians, letters to the Colossians, Thessalonians. Am I preaching properly? Yes. Or do you want me to say Karl Marx? But the most inspiring things that we learned, at least that I drew strength from, were the 4 epistles. They are called the prison epistles. I don't know if you know them, or first you want to go to jail to remember those. The 4 epistles are the following. The Ephesians, the Colossians, and Philemon. In all of them he describes himself as Paul, the prisoner of Christ. Yes. We were prisoners, yes. We too were prisoners. Not of the apartheid government. We're prisoners of Christ Jesus, the Lord and the Redeemer. But we're kept by apartheid people. Paul was not a prisoner of the Romans. He was a prisoner of God. Why? Because it was for God's work, for God's people, that he was kept in the dungeons where he was. Yes, it is. This is the man from whom we learned the goodness of faith. We kept the faith. I think that's what he says in a letter I'm going to refer to, and Timothy, or to Timothy. That is his last letter. Did you know that? You see, you thought I'm coming to teach you Marxism. I came to tell you about Timothy. I fought a good fight. That's what he says. The illness of the nation today, as we celebrate tomorrow, or in a few hours, because we're at a wake, we're waiting. The illness of the nation is found in the potholes. Infrastructural potholes on the roads. Potholes in our schools. Where books are missing, there are holes there. Producing our children who don't have much. Because we steal coming through those potholes. Potholes in health. Where people are stealing mattresses, they steal sheets from under the sick at hospitals. These hospitals, check your email, check your YouTube. Hospitals are on the floor. They're broken. They're broken. Potholes of health. Potholes which you'll find almost in every aspect of life. Policy potholes, political potholes, managerial. You are not saying those of you come from business in the marketplace. Potholes there as well. As people think that the quickest way of making money is not to compete in the market, but to go for a tender. You've got potholes here. There are potholes now in our own history, where people are changing the narrative of this country. We don't know who we are anymore, where we come from. Even the project of holding the people together, the Mandela way, the unity of our people, and social cohesion, driven by my brother here and other pastors. Look what they have built. Look where we are tonight. But there are people even within the religious community you cannot trust and dare not trust, because there are potholes also there. And people are playing gimmicks and they're stealing from the poor to service their rich lives. Why we come here, say, is because you're not a thief. That's all. And we're determined and prepared to continue to assist you in keeping body and soul together here, and keeping the potholes which emanate from society away from this center, this place of the Lord. How do you prevent potholes? You know the word? Restoration. This is it. Restoration. This is it. You are sitting in it right now. Hope restored. Close those political potholes. Rebuild those potholes we find in health, in education, in housing, in policies, in everything that we are just about to dig potholes in the Constitution, because soon people will turn against it. Such as right now, in the narrative, people want to say Nelson Mandela let them down. After a man had served for so long and so hard in prison, there are people, forgive them because these are victims of the corruption and distortion of the narrative of our history, so that we should forget where we come from. But I've just told you that this man, who became the first president tomorrow, 30 years ago, taught the Bible. You didn't know that. But he spread the word of God. He didn't have a church. He's doing what you do all the time. The young Mandela was doing your job. The potholes, the more they grow, they are filled by criminals. You see them inside. The potholes, the more they continue, they are filled by prostitution. They are filled by other forms of crime. As we zigzag in our country. Want to go to the future? We struggled for freedom, destined for the future. There is no future as long as we are zigzagging, trying to avoid these potholes created in front of us by those who should have known better, who use and abuse public office for personal purposes. Yes, their posters are out there. Even scoundrels do smile. There are good men. Oh, please. There are good men and women in society. Since 1994, who put their shoulder to the wheel so that we can achieve so much that has been achieved in this country. A lot has been done. Many things have changed in the lives of people. But we're seeing reversals. That's what we're talking about here. But what is us is these reversals. So check who is getting into these positions. It will tell you what is going to go on as we go forward in the future, because these potholes are forcing us, as I was saying, not to go to the future, but to zigzag. We're lost in the jungle. We don't know where we're going. We're not sure of what will happen with the economy, with social life, with justice, and things are even threatening our own constitution. We are a country of zigzags. There's no future when that is happening. A country of chiga chiga. We are now in the, where is the future? That day, Matebula. When we are chiga chiga. And these days we are picking up things as zama zama. That's where now we're scrounging for survival. We are now a nation which is a laughing stock on TikTok. So let's get it right. We are now zigzagging instead of going straight at a particular place towards the future. We are now people of jiga jiga. What happens to the youth? But I'm so happy to see this young and angry man. I'm angry with him for making me angry. And with such power, I feel the vehicle of liberation and freedom, the vehicle of those two young men who were teaching Bible in the Bundus years ago, the people of Lutuli, of Mahabani, of Oliver Tambo. These are names that you didn't know. This is what was said by the young man here. Gives me hope that the vehicle will be righted, because we need dedicated and devoted young people like himself. Paul the prisoner taught us fortitude. He himself was sacrificed. Faith is something very, very powerful. It's not easy to hold on to faith. And Paul never knew Christ. He was not one of the 12 who jigajigaed when the time came. They fled. You know, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, all of them. When the time came and the Son of Man was now being taken by forces of evil, by about the parts, the earth on the ground. And one decided, this is a business. He sold him but lived to regret. Be careful about picking up pieces of silver in the streets and betraying God and stabbing him over and over and over again. So they disappeared. But this former Roman soldier, this one who was persecuting the people of Christ, stayed, or he has never met him. But he's the one who has kept the faith. But will you pay with your life if you serve God? I should know. I was in the death cells. Many of you may not know. Go and see the ropes that awaited us. I left Solomon Mahlangu there when I was being carted away to Robben Island. Natasha here, my wife, I took her, let's come and see. She could not eat that night. But you see what happens. One day, I asked you. Robben Island is a university, it's an alma mater, it's beautiful, we're doing all sorts of things in music. But this place here, where Solomon Mahlangu was taken, is something else. Sacrifice goes with devotion and being devoted. Most of these disciples You know what happened? It's difficult to go through the word and the way of the Almighty, of Jesus the Redeemer. You know what happened to him? It's not an easy mission. It is not an easy mission. But believe in faith. And faith now leads to freedom. The struggle, struggle is always there. But where to? Chiga chiga? Zama zama? Zigzag? You'll end up on TikTok. Sacrifice goes along with faith and belief. One of the best examples for me of faith was around the crucifixion, the way of Christ. There are people who kept the faith around this mission, our mission. People who kept the faith when Christ was captured. The closest to him had fled, but there are those who kept the faith and made the name of those women who stayed with him live long. They stayed with him from Gethsemane until Golgotha. Faith. They just followed. Peter tried with a sword, but Christ said, the moment has arrived. Put away and have the year back. Forgiveness. But thereafter, people realized that, I don't know me. My name is not Tokyo, that's it. I'm Gabriel. But on that day, what would I have done? Then Gethsemane, when they came to get the master. Would you master your own fear? I probably would have gone with the 11. The women kept the faith and hope. I'm talking about our society here and the world. Keep the faith and preach on. But then you are faced with the judgment. Pontius Pilate and all of them. Pontius Pilate was terrified. Somehow this man felt, I know. They tried to get him, let's finish this man off. And he asked, what has he done? But Faith was his wife. The wife of another woman, the wife of Pontius, said, don't blood your hands around this man. There's something that told her, we're dealing with some other person. And Pontius Pilate found a way of wiping his hands and even offered and said to Christ, I can help you. Just these accusations. They say you claim to be this or that. Speak for yourself. And Christ said, I am who I am. You are who you are. Never be afraid to testify and stand for the truth. I am who I am. I mean, that was the time, I was a prisoner also, that was the time to say, this thing of my father sent me here and it's not me. I am who I am. And I remind you of the wife of Pontius. Even Pilate said that, and Christ is on his way now to the final moment, because it must finish, not him. It must finish, the mission must finish. On the way, because he's got a human body, he keeps on falling. But from amongst those people, faith of somebody who, these were other people. Simeon of Cyrene was not one of the closest people. These gladiators and fighters. And they always try to get Christ to say something that people follow it. Just say something about fighting and you'll fight. And remember, Christ never carried his cross eventually to Golgotha. Somebody helped him. Are you prepared to stand with him when he's down? Are you prepared when the people are taking the name of God to stand up and testify? Are you devoted enough when Christ is not there to speak out for him? Simeon, a black man. It was hidden for a long time that he was from us. And he shouldered the one who carries the cross, the burden of Christ. That's faith. For a man who's going to die. But look what happens on the cross. One man this side, another one that side. Faith, hope. What kept us alive? How can you miss this in jail and fall down, Mandela? You carry that 27 years of the cross because you know the story of faith and hope. One man lost hope. Save yourself, he says. You have been saving people and performing miracles. It is now the time. That's a man of little faith. But the other one said, if only I can be with you. How can you believe in this man who's hanging here? With all those things are this wrong. And they've done things. You still believe in a man like that? Father, forgive them. You see, that's the son speaking. Father, forgive them. But for me, the fall of the Roman Empire, they've made many films about this. But Rome fell when faith came. Because the soldiers and the colonel who was in charge of the execution, when things started jigga, and it is finished. Into your hands I commend my spirit, not my body, you can keep the body here. My spirit. God doesn't die. Once he said, into your hands, and things started jigga. A Roman soldier. Once the Roman soldier went down on his knees and he removed it and said, truly this was, that's faith. That's faith. And on that day, during that hour, Rome fell. Because you cannot trust an army that behaves in this manner. That is why later, in many years, Peter, Paul, and them, Rome fell from the blows of prayer by Christians, the followers of Christ. That's what happened. That's the magic of faith. Then there's a man called Mr. Lazarus Zim. You're the one who taught, I didn't know this name. Remember Zim, you're sitting next to, you know, your husband he's something else. Just kiss him every night for me. He's something else. Just for me. I know the story, but the grave. Because Christ didn't have a grave. Just imagine, never had a home, a refugee on the run, from the womb into a place of animals, a home energy. A refugee on the run, never had transport, even borrowed a donkey. Had nothing. Never had a church. Because he had said, whenever two or more of you are together, there my church is. See, it's not the number of us here, the two of us, or more, whenever we're together. And that's how we kept the faith in jail. But here's a man who has nothing, not even a grave. Nothing. But because he was a fisher of men, people followed him. Finally, he was borrowed a grave. Just remember that. From the cradle of nothing, no cradle, to the grave, he had nothing. But the man who came and risked his life, because crucifixion says you hang there until you die, so that animals can poke and eat you in public for weeks. But this man that Lazarus taught me his name, he went to the Romans and begged and asked for the body. Don't worry, the spirit is gone. It was about the body now. Can I have this body? Just that it's a crime, it's treason. They put you to the sword. But somehow, those who gave that body had turned. Because it was a violation of Roman law. Roman law says, you get crucified, you stay there, we must see vultures eating you, so that should be an example for other people. Those who gave that body, Rome had fallen. Rome could not trust these people. And later, that's why they returned as Christians, and Rome fell. Ugliness disappears in the face and the blows of good people with prayer. I will finish now, because it is finished. Joseph of Arimathea. Am I pronouncing it correctly, Lazarus? Joseph of Arimathea. That's the man who later, read the scriptures, became himself a great disciple. Some say he was underground, businessman underground, man of God. And of course, it is finished. It's never finished until women return for the body, and they ask, again, women, they ask the question, women of Nazareth, because that's where he came from. This is Jesus of Nazareth. Why are you looking for the living amongst the dead? Why are you here? And that's when they knew, with all the proof. Read your scriptures. He's risen. He's risen. We're ending our Passover now. He's risen. He is risen. The ones who are hiding, they left him. Hey, these guys, you don't associate with a man who's hanging like that. Even me, I would not be there. I would have long asked Lazarus, Mfana, get a taxi, let's go. La, ya fi wala. So I think I would have been amongst those men. I would have been a strong believer, but I would be in the house with them. Thomas said, I know Lord. He loves the Lord, but let me see, because this can be an imposter. Let me see. And of course, Christ showed himself to them, and the story of faith goes on. We believe in the good deeds of Christ, in the struggles that we get involved in the freedom that we enjoy, in the future that we must have, not because we believe in our own strengths, but we believe that above us there is a super mighty, almighty, who's in charge of all things. You fail that, you fail everything. I close with Timothy. When it's all over, when it is finished, do say, as Paul says, I fought a good fight. I kept the faith. And what is the last one? I finished the race. In your lives, you should be able to hold on to that. As we resurrect the people of Christ and fill up the potholes, even those which are in our souls, we keep that faith and keep in memory the wonderful news, the good news of Christ, Jesus, or Jesus Christ. There's a difference how Paul uses Christ, Jesus, and Jesus Christ. I leave it to you because there's a reason how it is used like that. Thank you, Dadima Tebula, for inviting me to come here tonight. If those of you who had expected that I've got a picture on a lamp hanging outside, you vote for me, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm I'm here tonight. Tokyo is a warrior in the streets, but tonight you were listening to Gabriel. I thank you.